Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Be Radical Make Music podcast. I'm Rosie, and today's episode, I want to talk about anxiety and authenticity. And I've got some personal stories, shall we say, from the week that has happened. This is Friday, the 14th, 15th of September, but also I'm also recording this on camera because for like the last month I've been thinking I really want to start a YouTube channel. I was thinking about all the cool videos I could do and how I would need to put them together and film it, and I thought just start. You've got a podcast, film the podcast and put it on YouTube. So I'm here starting. So if you're listening to this, then you can pop over to YouTube. I'm going to just chuck this up there. And if you're on YouTube, then go and listen on the podcast and listen to all the other episodes. So anyway, so today we're talking about authenticity and anxiety. And I've got notes on my phone for this one because I think it's a really, really important thing to address. So I'm huge for saying, be authentic. In fact, I run a workshop called Authentic Songwriting, and it starts a week today. And I thought, I'm asking people to show up, to be authentic and to be vulnerable and to be just be yourself. And actually, that is really, really hard. And so I wanted to address the anxiety that I've been feeling recently by showing up more authentically, and also by asking others to do so. I feel there's even more need for me to talk about this and address it, and so that we can all have this conversation instead of ignoring the sort of the really hard edge that comes with the beauty of vulnerability and the beauty of authenticity. There is a real sort of, there's a feeling of danger sometimes that comes with it. And I really recognise that. And so let's talk about it. Right, so I have got my notes here. I want to talk about it because I've been experiencing it recently. My recent experience is I've started a program called Courageous Voice, and it's a 6-week coaching program with an absolutely incredible coach. And in there, we are basically looking at how can you show up online and feel more courageous, and have your content online feel more aligned with you and who you are and what you sell and what you do, and less sort of like generic and less cookie cuttery and less like so many people. And I had realised over the last couple of years of running Radical Songwriting Academy and running workshops and various events online that sometimes I could find myself trying to look for other people's words and what other people have said in this realm, like what other people are saying to songwriters or what other people saying when they are launching a workshop. And I would find myself sort of saying what they were saying instead of really looking inside and thinking, well, who am I? And what is it that I want to offer? And can I get behind myself? Can I promote what I'm doing from a place of real authenticity from me first? And I had realised this year in particular that I just lost what that might look like. And I had sort of, I felt a bit blocked when I thought about posting online, and maybe you can resonate with this because I know so many songwriters feel like this. When I would post online or think about posting online, I would just block. I would just like freeze. And I was like, what is going on? Why can I not just do this, And I realised it was that I was really disconnected from what was my authentic voice. What did that even mean anymore to me? And I was too busy kind of thinking, what is expected of me in this space? What do I want other people to think about me instead of what do I think about me? And can I put that out there? So recently, going through this program, it means that I've been drilling into what that voice might be and posting more online and posting more videos online, hence this video, but posting things that are a little bit more in alignment with what I truly feel about things, not necessarily what I think the marketing talk should be. And I do know there's probably a line that I need to to sort of find in between those two things. But I'm very happy to let that pendulum swing into a space that feels like when I'm talking about what's coming up, the workshop, the academy, I want to talk about it from my excitement, because I think it's great. I think these experiences and these events that I've been doing for years now, I see the change in people. I'm really excited about them. I lie in my bed at night and I think, oh, I could do this, and then we could do that, and I could give them that song prompt, and then we could do this community event, and and I get really lit up about it. And then as soon as I come to post about it, I'm like, ugh. So I've been getting rid of I've been getting rid of the stuck feeling, and bit by bit just unpacking it and putting my guard down. But hence the title of this episode, it's left me at times feeling really anxious. So 2 nights ago, I checked my Facebook and Instagram comments, and I have a few ads running, which might even be how you found me, but I have a few ads running for this workshop. And they are like no other ads I've done before. The other ads I've done, I've sort of looked at what other people have done, what's worked for them, and tried to sort of align myself to that. But this time I just went straight from what felt good to me. And as a result, these ads have been getting loads more comments. But within those comments, it's the internet, right? And there's some nasty things in there. There's some things about how I look. There's some things about the workshop. There's some things about just songwriters in general. And I read these, bad move, in my bed before going to sleep on Wednesday night, which meant I didn't sleep at all on Wednesday night, because I literally could hear, I had personified these comments into voices in my head, and it was just going round and round, and I was so anxious that I found myself saying, Rosie, just change the ads, just change it all, just change that last post you put on Instagram, just change it, like make it less you, make it more generic, make it more acceptable. And I was really struggling with this. And so I'm really happy that I'm in this coaching program, because I could bring this to my coach and say, I had this vulnerability hangover, right? It's like we do a thing, we need to be brave to do it when we're doing it from a place of our own personal truth. The fear is that no one understands us and no one hears us and no one believes us, and it's just us screaming into the void. And so when you do put things out there, there is this sort of hangover experience, and it can be really painful. And when I was talking to my coach about it, I realised there's one other place in my life I felt this exact feeling before, and that is with my music, right? It is literally like for like. And in particular, I have a real intense memory of when I was first releasing my first proper record. It was a 4-track EP called Be Bold. And it was my first proper anything. It was the first time I invested money in my music. It was the first time I invested money in marketing, the first time I paid for a photographer. Like, it was the first time that I really went, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. And these songs where, it's called Be Bold, right? I've always clearly been someone who's trying to be myself and needing to help myself be myself through my art. Like, my album is called Identify Yourself. I don't make concept albums. I make albums about, I'm feeling this shit and it's really fucking hard, and inevitably there's a song that's came from it. So when I released Be Bold, I was living in London and I was on holiday in Berlin at the time, and I could not rest. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat, because the EP had just came out. And the vulnerability hangover that I had, I was just so scared of any comment. And I mean, like, anyone, even people liking it. When I saw any notification on Facebook or Twitter, or I got that email in from a blogger or a reviewer, it was like my guts were churning. I got back to London after that 1 week of basically living in a Starbucks, because I was also tied to my phone and tied to the internet, even though I almost didn't want to read this stuff. I got back to London, and it took a long time for me to release my next record, because I felt a bit traumatized. I felt like, is this what it's like? Is this what it's going to be like every time? And so I really recognized this vulnerability hangover from my music. I really recognised it this week when I was posting new things online. Now, I'm sharing all this because I want you to know, like, if you are doing music and putting music out there, or you've got someone like me on the internet who's saying, just write from the heart and just, be yourself. And you're thinking, that's really hard for me. Like, I know it is. And I can totally understand and resonate why. And that is why I think these conversations are so important. We need to be able to talk about this stuff, because this is the stuff that's left out of courses and left out of workshops. And it's the reason why I've called the workshop Authentic Songwriting. And inside the workshop, we will definitely be talking about the vulnerability and the anxiety and the procrastination that comes from that, and the perfectionism as well that comes from the fact that our vulnerability is scary and potentially could lead us to a place that feels a bit traumatic if you've had any experiences before. So knowing that we're going to tackle it head on, for me, that helps. That helps a lot, having these conversations. So let's see. Right, so what I've written here is what I've learned from all of the above. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I feel really anxious anytime I think about even writing my music, because I know that feeling, like I said, when I even thought about posting on social media, I feel anxious and I hadn't even written anything yet. So if you're feeling like that about your music, then there's a few things that I think we can learn from each other. And this is just my opinion on it. And if you have your own comments and opinions on this, which I'm sure you do, please share them wherever you're listening or watching this, because this is a conversation. This isn't just one ginger Glaswegian lassie on the internet that knows things. This is just my experience. So what I've written here is, I don't think we can skip this part. I don't think it's possible to skip the discomfort, that part. I think when we're making art, and we've got to always remember the context in which we're making art, it's 2023, our lives are hybrid of offline and online. The online world is not just this separate world anymore. It is actually, it's my business and my job, and for so many musicians, it's their work, it's how they connect, and it is this hybrid experience. We're not living in small, close-knit, loving, caring communities where we can sit around the campfire and you can present your art to people who will nurture it just for the sake of it existing. Instead, we live in a context where it will be judged. It will be judged, and people potentially on the internet will be very vocal about their judgments. And there is a bright and dark side to that context. I think the bright side is that you now more than ever have more opportunity, like, than anyone who's came before us. There are people carving out beautiful music careers for themselves using the tools that they have at their disposal, and earning a really decent living and doing it on their own terms. But obviously the dark side of that is that it is public domain. As soon as you post your song online, and the double-edged sword is, we spend so much time worrying about what people think about what we've just posted online, but at the same time, to get lots of people to see what you've posted online is a job. Like, there's people whose job it is to manage your social media and to get more people into your Facebook and your Instagram. But at the same time, we're really fearful of that happening. So there is a context to our vulnerability when it comes to sharing our music, when it comes to even writing our music, because I think a lot of us have that in our head first. And so that comes back to my point of, I don't think we can skip this part though. I don't think there's a world in which we can make art in the context that we live in without feeling a little discomfort, in particular at the beginning. I really think that discomfort warps and ebbs and flows. But I know people who've been making art their entire adult life and make a change and a pivot to start to a new project. Maybe they go from making music to performance art, or they go from a visual artist to maybe they're a dancer. Or they're just creating a brand new project that is in a medium that's so new for them, they feel really like a newbie. Their vulnerability levels all of a sudden will go from very manageable and understandable because they've been living with it throughout their artistic career, to, oh my God, this is really uncomfortable. I think our vulnerability and that vulnerability hangover, and as a result, the anxiety that can come with it, is sometimes related very much to how truthful you're being to yourself, how authentic you really are being, and maybe how much you're outside your comfort zone. And I think as artists, we need a mixture, because it can get boring. Your art can get boring to you. My art gets really boring to me very often, and I'm always seeking for ways to push it to a different place. And that feeling scared part, that's how I know sometimes that I've done that. I want to put a caveat here about anxiety though, that, like I mentioned about my record Be Bold, that I felt almost like traumatized. I don't want anyone to feel like that about their music and about their songs and about putting that out. I don't think that's healthy. I would never put myself in a situation again like I did back then. That was like 2013 or 2014. And so I've written this down so I don't forget. So there are things we can do to sort of galvanise ourselves and to stay healthy whilst we are feeling vulnerable, whilst we are making art that's pushing us a bit into our vulnerability and into our outside our comfort zone. So for me, I'll tell you what works for me, and then that might spark some ideas for you. And maybe you can post them in a comment or email me or put it in one of my communities. For me, being outside, like I have a habit of being a hermit. Like I could stay in this room with the door closed all day and hardly even open the window. Like I can work and work and work, and I get so engrossed in things that I can forget, oh God, I need to eat or I need to go for a pee. And so I'll start to feel anxious when that happens. And just the simple act of going outside the house has a huge impact. And I don't need to necessarily be surrounded in nature. I just need to be close to something that's not brick and mortar. So a tree or just a walk and looking at the sky. And I live in Spain, so we have these beautiful blue skies often, and I'm from a country that doesn't have blue skies. So even things like that, that really helps me. And I've almost got to force myself to remember to do that. So if you're like me and you're an artist who can just like drill in and forget that you're actually a human at the same time, then think about what that is that you might need to sort of counterbalance that. That really helps me when I'm feeling anxious or vulnerable, if it's particularly if it's to do with work or art, you know. We must step back. So taking a step back. So for me, that means this thing needs to be off. I can't check it in my bed. This device, this computer in my pocket is the source. It's maybe not the root, but it's definitely the trigger for a lot of my anxious, vulnerable moments, particularly when it comes to songs. If I've released a new song, or when I first moved to Spain, I released a music video, my first ever music video, and I was shitting myself because I'd never been on camera like that before. I'd only ever done live. I'll be on camera live, talking, gigging, singing till I'm blue in the face. But being on camera in an artistic, curated way, like a music video where you're miming and you're moving and you're trying to visually express through your physicality something, I'd never done that before, and I was shitting myself. And so it was on my phone, and I would be checking it, and it got great response. But the trigger, maybe not the source, but the trigger. So I need to step back from this, step back from work, and step out of the house. Another thing I've noticed for me with this vulnerability hangover is I go towards sugar. And if anyone's been long-term listeners to this podcast, you'll know in August I've done a sugar-free month. And I tell you, one of the things that shifted the most in that sugar-free month was my feelings of any kind of anxiety or nervousness or just general jitteriness. I've got a pretty activated nervous system most of the time. I need to do a lot of breathing and meditation and all that stuff to pull it down. But taking sugar out my diet, that really helped. I did intend to do it for September, but not quite made it work. We will try again. But that's a huge one for me, is sugar and that sort of food. A couple other things I've written down is the feeling of vulnerability is not always going to feel so acute. So it's not always going to be so spiky and pokey and icky and intense. I believe that if you are connected to your songwriting and you're doing it over and over again and you're sharing, and also if you find a community of people who are genuinely got your back, they are genuinely supportive. And if you don't have one and you're listening to this, come join us. It's a free Facebook community. It's called Radical Songwriting. It's just the most lovely bunch of people who we share our songs every Saturday. And just being inside songwriting Facebook groups, there's a lot of ickiness in them. I don't like them. I'm not a fan of them. So even when I set my first one up, I was like, do I really want to do this? But it is a beautiful, really nice community of people who genuinely have each other's back. And so I think being exposed to those experiences of sharing your art and being vulnerable with people, first to do it inside a supportive space, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think it makes you any less brave or any less of an artist or any less like putting yourself out your comfort zone any less. I think it's a beautiful way to practice what it feels like to share, because it's not the easiest thing to do. And it just blows my mind when you've got people on the internet commenting on anyone's art in any negative way who haven't done that themselves. And you can tell them out of the way, the people who are just like, nah, that's fine. I'm at the stage now where when it comes to my music, that vulnerability hangover, that reaction isn't quite so acute. And so that's how I know that it's not going to always feel like that. And practice with people who care about you and care about your music, who are probably doing it themselves. As a great community to have. We all need each other. We all need help. We all need support. We're not supposed to do this on our own. If we were supposed to do this on our own, we wouldn't have half of the human community instincts that we have. People and being around people wouldn't feel so nurturing at times, and I see it in all of my students, and I see it inside these communities over and over again. People sharing for the first time or the first time in a long time and being like, thank you so much for letting me do this here. So that's a big one. And I said it's kind of like a breaking in period. You get a new pair of shoes and they're really sore and you've got to like break them in. I kind of feel like that's art. Sharing your music, sharing your songs, whatever capacity that might be in. It's kind of like, right, I've got to break in these shoes and I just need to wear them about the house first. I'm not going to go walk 10 miles in them. I'm not going to go really far away from my house. I'm just going to walk around the house. And so if you come into one of these communities, it doesn't have to be mine, but make your own, and you're sharing your songs and your art in there. It's kind of like you're just walking around the house with your new shoes on, 2 pairs of socks. We've got the plasters at hand for if we get any bleeds. And I think that's actually, I like that analogy. I'm going to keep that. And the last thing I've written down here is I never want to not feel... I'm a lyricist. I can put triple negatives wherever I want. Okay. Basically, I always want to feel a little vulnerable when I'm sharing my art, because I want to feel the human connection behind it. I don't make music just to make money. I don't make music because I've got some sort of like, I want to be in this sort of top 10 playlist on Spotify. Or I've never gravitated towards those like high strategies. If someone wants to come along and do that for me, I wouldn't say no. But when I'm writing, in particular, when I'm writing the songs, none of that's on my mind. But when I do go to share, I do want people to like it. I mean, I can't deny that. And I don't think any of us should deny it. Like, we want people to enjoy our music. I want people to connect with it, because if you don't connect with anything I've said or written, then it does feel like I am screaming into that void that I mentioned before, and that feels so lonely and painful. And actually, most of the time, the reason I'm writing in the first place is I've got something to express. That's the first part. I've got something I just need to get out of me. I need to get it out of me. I can feel it bubbling inside, and I need to get home and I need to get it out. But when I share it, I have almost like an equal compulsion, like I need to know someone else feels this too, or I need to know that someone gets this. And it's not about validation in a am I a real artist way, because I feel like the artistry, it begins as soon as the idea is even presented to you. In fact, you could even argue that you don't even need to be doing art to be an artist. I think we're all creating all the time. You're creating every day. Every day you're breathing. You're creating. You're constantly in a state of creation. But when it comes to sharing, I want people to like it. I want people to connect with it. And even if you don't like it, I want you to not like it in such a way that it's so interesting that you don't like it, that we can talk about it. And I've had conversations with people who really don't get my music or don't like it, but really appreciate it, and we can talk about it and then talk about music in general and as a whole. And there have been some of the most interesting and eye-opening conversations for me, and as an artist, to just let go of that ego, which might be where some of the pain comes from anyway. But that's another podcast episode entirely. So I suppose I'm just going to wrap up by saying that if you hear me online talking about be authentic, connect with your inner artist and explore your own artistic voice, that I'm not saying that is necessarily something that's going to come super easy and never going to feel vulnerable and you're never going to be anxious about it and all you need is 1 5-day workshop and then that's you. But what I am saying is that I think it's part of the path of making art that feels like you. And it might not always be quite so acute like we've mentioned, but I don't think we can skip that part. And as I'm going through the coaching program, Courageous Voice, and realizing that bravery exists at the exact same time as fear. It's not that you get rid of fear and all of a sudden you can do the thing. It's that the fear is there and you grow your skills and your levels of bravery. And I think bravery and vulnerability are so closely related to each other when it comes to our artists, when we are moving forward with what it is that we want to do. So I feel really good now that I've got all of that out. So thank you for listening, and please do let me know what you think about this. If you do want to come and join us, we start next week, Friday the 22nd, Authentic Songwriting. It's a 5-day workshop. We meet in the morning for 20 minutes and I give a workshop and I give you a song prompt and you have the whole day to go and do your songwriting. And then we have various moments to check in with each other, to share if you want to. We're going to meet on Zoom. We're going to discuss the experience. We're going to find out that actually what you feel is not in a vacuum and there are many other people who probably feel very, very similar. I'm also running a more in-depth program alongside it called the Authentic Collective, where you can come in and we'll do some group coaching and we'll just go deeper into your songwriting. But I think it's going to be great. It's going to be a really, really nice 5 days, and we're going to talk about all of this. So I hope to see you in there if that's your bag and you're up for it. And please do let me know what you think about this topic, and let's continue the conversation online. Anyway, so I will be back next week with a new episode, and until then I hope you have a really, really amazing day, wherever you are, whatever you're up to. And being a radical songwriter, I think the more I get into this radical songwriting thing that I'm doing, and the more people I talk to, the more I realise being radical isn't something that we put on. It's almost like we let go of a lot of the ideas that we think we should be and how we should feel and how we should sound. By letting go of all of that, that's pretty radical. Writing your music in the first place and choosing art and choosing yourself, that's radical. So keep going, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for watching.